7 years. That's how long he sat in jail for a crime he didn't commit. An innocent black man, locked away, watching his life fall apart. And the system? It just kept failing him. But here's the twist. He found a loophole, something no one saw coming. What happens next? It's not just shocking. It's proof that even when the odds are stacked against you, there's still a way to fight back. Stay with us because this story will make you question everything you think you know about justice. Imagine sitting in a cell for 7 long years, knowing you're innocent, but no one believes you. That was James's life. A hard-working man wrongly accused and left to fight a broken system. But what happened when he discovered a tiny detail everyone else missed? It's a story you won't forget. James was just a regular guy living in a small town, working 2 jobs to support his wife and young son. He kept to himself, stayed out of trouble, and had no criminal record. One night, everything changed. A robbery occurred at a local convenience store, and the suspect, described as a black man in his 30s wearing a hoodie, matched James's general appearance. That's all it took. James was arrested at his home in front of his family, handcuffed as his son cried and his wife begged for answers. Despite his alibi, he was at work during the robbery. The police claimed they had enough evidence to convict him. Their evidence included an unreliable witness, a grainy security video, and James's mere proximity to the crime scene. His court-appointed lawyer barely fought for him, urging James to take a plea deal. But James refused. He wasn't going to admit to something he didn't do. The trial was quick, and the jury, swayed by the weak evidence and subtle biases, found him guilty. James was sentenced to 15 years in prison for a crime he didn't commit. Inside those walls, James lost almost everything. His wife divorced him, unable to handle the pressure and stigma. He missed his son's childhood, watching him grow up through photographs sent in the mail. But even as the years passed, James never stopped fighting. He spent every spare moment in the prison library, teaching himself about the law, hoping to find a way to prove his innocence. James had spent nearly a decade behind bars for a crime he swore he didn't commit. Every day, he replayed the trial in his mind, searching for answers, for anything that might prove his innocence. One evening, as he combed through the trial transcripts and old evidence files yet again, something caught his eye, something he had never noticed before. The prosecution had mentioned a security video from the convenience store where the crime took place. James had seen the video during the trial, but the details felt incomplete. Digging deeper, he discovered a reference to another video, a second security camera that captured a different angle of the scene. He had never seen this footage. It didn't take long for James to learn why. When he finally managed to get access to that video, the truth stared back at him. The footage showed the suspect walking out of the store, a tattoo clearly visible on his forearm. James rolled up his sleeves and looked at his bare arms. He'd never had any tattoos, something that should have been impossible to miss in court. But the prosecution had conveniently forgotten to mention it. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a violation of the law. The prosecution was required to share all evidence with the defense, even if it hurt their case. By hiding the video, they had robbed James of a fair shot at proving his innocence. James felt a spark of hope for the first time in years. This was his chance, but he couldn't do it alone. From his small, dimly lit cell, he started writing letters. Hundreds of them. He wrote to lawyers, organizations, innocence projects, anyone who might listen. Most never replied. Those who did told him they were sorry, but couldn't help. Months turned into years, and James began to lose hope. Then, one day, he got a response. A young attorney named Lisa had read his letter. She couldn't stop thinking about the injustice of his case. The idea that someone could lose years of their life because the system failed them didn't sit right with her. Lisa decided to take his case, for free. When she visited James for the first time, she brought a copy of the second video and sat across from him in the cold, gray meeting room. "James, she said, sliding the footage across the table. "This changes everything." For the first time in 7 years, James allowed himself to believe she might be right. Lisa wasted no time. She filed a motion to reopen James's case, laying out the facts clearly. The prosecution had broken the rules by hiding evidence. It wasn't just a mistake. It was the kind of thing that could turn an entire trial upside down. The court, after reviewing her motion, agreed to take another look at James's case. The hearing was set, and for the first time in 7 years, James walked into a courtroom feeling like he had a fighting chance. Sitting at the defense table, he glanced at Lisa. She gave him a small nod, her face calm but focused. This time, he wasn't alone. When the hearing began, Lisa wasted no time presenting the new evidence. The second security video was played for the court. Everyone in the room could clearly see the suspect walking out of the convenience store, his tattoo visible on his forearm. Lisa paused the footage, turning to the jury. "My client has no tattoos," she said simply, then walked over to James. "Stand up, please." James pushed back his chair and stood, rolling up his sleeves. His arms were bare. Lisa let the silence sink in before continuing. One by one, she went through the prosecution's case from the original trial. She showed how it was built on shaky witness statements and assumptions. Witnesses who once claimed to be sure admitted under questioning that they couldn't confidently say James was the man they saw. The second video, Lisa argued, was the missing piece that proved James had been wrongly accused. The prosecutor tried to push back, but their arguments fell apart under Lisa's relentless questioning. By the time the hearing was over, it was clear to everyone in the room that the original case against James didn't hold up. As the judge reviewed the evidence, the courtroom fell silent. James sat frozen in his seat, his hands clasped tightly in his lap. He didn't dare hope too much, but he couldn't stop himself either. Lisa placed a reassuring hand on his shoulder, whispering, "We've done everything we can." The judge finally spoke. His voice was firm but clear. "This court finds that the prosecution's failure to disclose key evidence denied the defendant a fair trial. The conviction is overturned. Mr. James Edwards, you are free to go." James felt the words hit him like a wave. His legs gave out as he tried to stand, and he grabbed the edge of the table for support. Tears poured down his face, and he didn't care who saw them. 7 years of pain, fear, and hopelessness melted away in that moment. Lisa helped him steady himself as the guards removed his handcuffs. James looked at her, his voice barely a whisper. "Thank you for believing in me." She smiled, her eyes shining. "You deserve the truth to come out, James." As he walked out of the courtroom, the world seemed brighter. The air felt different, lighter. For the first time in years, James was free. Free to live, free to dream, and free to rebuild the life that had been stolen from him. James walked out of the courtroom to a crowd of supporters, including his now teenage son, who ran into his arms. It was a bittersweet moment. He had lost so much time, but he was determined to rebuild his life. The case sparked outrage in the media, with calls for accountability for the prosecutors who mishandled it. Lisa continued to advocate for James, helping him receive compensation for the years he lost. James didn't let the experience break him. Instead, he used it as fuel to help others. He began speaking out about wrongful convictions and became an advocate for prison reform, sharing his story to prevent others from going through the same ordeal. James's story shone a light on the flaws in the justice system, how bias, negligence, and a lack of accountability could ruin innocent lives. It inspired new legislation in his state, requiring stricter rules for evidence disclosure and more funding for public defenders. Organizations that work to exonerate the innocent saw a surge in support and donations. For James, the ripple effects were personal too. His relationship with his son began to heal, and though the scars of his ordeal remained, he found purpose in fighting for justice. James's story reminds us of the importance of perseverance and hope, even in the darkest moments. It highlights how critical it is to question the systems we trust and to stand up for those who are wrongly accused. It's also a testament to the power of education and self-advocacy. James didn't wait for someone to save him. He took the first step, and that made all the difference. Have you ever been falsely accused or felt like no one believed you? Share your story in the comments below. We'd love to hear how you overcame it. And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that inspire and challenge the way we see the world. Subscribe for more powerful stories of resilience and unity.